Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to tell you about some major mistakes people make when getting into the RC hobby. And hopefully by watching this video, you'll learn from this and you won't make them too. First, there are a couple mistakes when it comes to choosing the RC you're going to buy. You want to first look around you. Where do you live and what kind of terrain is around you? Do you have a dirt track nearby that you're likely to use? In that case, you might want to buy a dirt track race car, a buggy or a truggy, something that can handle those kinds of courses. Many people like the idea of that kind of a truck, fast and light, or want to do racing, not thinking really about the fact that they're going to need to drive quite a ways to get to a track to use it on. So look around you. The same can be said for trucks like bashers, street cars, things like that. You need big, wide open spaces for this hobby, especially the faster and bigger scale ones. 8th and 5th scale trucks are very fast and big and require quite a bit of room, which I think people underestimate when it comes to looking at spaces to drive in. That even gets multiplied more when you look at high-speed runs or big air bashing. You're going to need a lot of room to run up, jump, land, or whatever it takes for the kind of driving you're doing. So make the truck match your terrain. Also, when going to pick the RC you want to buy, don't be tempted by price alone. There's a lot of really cheap RCs out there. I know things are expensive, and this hobby is certainly one of them, but you want to choose a truck that's going to last and that's a good quality brand name. I obviously have a favorite here, but there are many other really good brands to choose from. I'd advise you stay away from off-label brands or ones that look similar but are at a much cheaper price. You might get what you pay for on those. And that leads to another aspect of this, which is part availability. Bigger brand names typically have more availability of parts, and that's going to become very crucial when you start breaking the truck. People choose trucks that are cheap, but not realizing that when it comes to breaking and repairing trucks, they're going to have to be searching for parts to choose from. Relatedly is the realistic aspect of your budget. You might see an enticing deal on a ready-to-run RC that may come with the truck, receiver, radio, and maybe even a battery too. However, you need to know that you're going to spend more than that. And not only that, you're most likely going to buy more than one truck as time goes on. Check out some of my videos here, which highlight some of the aspects of the hidden costs in RCs, as well as some important tips to know when you're getting started. So budget for some spending, but it will be well worth it, trust me. And if your partner or your family gives you a hard time about the budget, just remind them, hobbies are great for your mental health, and they want you to be happy, right? At least that's the one I'm trying. It's working so far. Now let's say you've decided on an RC you want to get, or perhaps you already have one or more of them. It can be very tempting when you see it to start looking at modifications quickly. I would advise you to hold off and learn the truck as it is stock. You want to get the feel for it, how it handles in the air and on the ground, and it's hard to do that when you start messing with modifications or adjustments too soon. You're not going to know what the baseline is. So I would strongly encourage people to drive the truck stock for a while and get the hang of it before you start adjusting or upgrading. Now let's say you just are not into upgrading or you don't know how yet. It's going to be crucial that you do learn some basic skills on the RC. Another mistake that people make is they ignore this aspect of it. They beat the truck, break it, and kind of let it collect dust, or they don't know how to do the basic maintenance on an RC car that is required to keep it running smoothly for a long time. So you got to really open up the manual, read through it a bit, and I hear there's some really great YouTube channels out there which give some great advice on things. Check them out. You can learn a lot on YouTube. But seriously, not just my channel. There's so many channels out there that have tons of information. If you break something and you don't know how to fix it, I'm pretty sure there's someone out there who's made a video about how to fix it. So search and learn. You're going to get so good at this, you'll forget about the days when you didn't know what you were doing. Another common mistake is buying the wrong kind of upgraded part. So similar to how I spoke about buying a top quality RC car, the same is true for buying modified parts. There's a huge range of brand, quality, and price on different modified parts. So as with everything, there's sort of a low end, a mid-range, and a high end on these parts. But if you go too cheap, Amazon, for example, is common for having some off-label parts that look identical to some of the higher end ones, and yet they're made from a much cheaper material, or you'll end up buying so many of them that it overcompensates for the cheaper price. So do your homework and buy higher end parts if you can. Amazon also carries some good parts, and I often use Amazon affiliate links in my channel. It really actually helps out the channel a lot. Doesn't cost you anything, but it gives me a commission when you buy parts or trucks through those links. So be on the lookout for those links in all my videos. Whether you're buying it on Amazon or not, you got to look at the quality, the brand, and the price to determine if you're getting a quality part. Related to that is the temptation that people have to use metal parts where they shouldn't. As enticing as metal A-arms and rod ends may seem, their rigidity removes the flex that plastic parts provide to absorb impact. Instead of bending, flexing, or even breaking like stock plastic parts tend to do on impact, these metal parts just transfer that force to another component and end up breaking it. So while your A-arm may be intact, your more expensive bulkhead, for example, may be broken instead. There's a reason why they made these certain parts plastic. Keep them that way and don't mess with it. There are other parts though that can benefit from metal upgrades, and I go through those in many of my other videos. Another common mistake is that people don't use Loctite when they should. So any metal on metal screws, a metal screw going into a metal chassis, for example, or a metal screw going into a metal bulkhead, those are times when you'd want to use Loctite. And you want to use the right kind too. The most common kind of Loctite you want to use is the blue kind. Whether it's this gel or the liquid is up to you and your preference, but that's the kind you want to use most. Very rarely would you use the red kind, and that red Loctite is much stronger than the blue. So if you use that inappropriately, you're going to end up with much tighter screws than you need, and that will lead to stripping. If you don't use any Loctite, your screws are going to back out while you're bashing and running, and you're going to lose screws. Parts are going to break that way. So be mindful of what you do and when to only use this red Loctite. I've made a couple videos about that, as well as how to get out stripped screws if you make that mistake. Other components, for example, like the grub screw on the pinion, which spins at an extremely high revolution, requires a ton of Loctite, even red Loctite. And that's one of the places where I do recommend using red Loctite, assuming you use heat to remove it. Speaking of the pinion gear, that's another area where you want to focus and learn a little bit more about. Not only can you adjust the pinion tooth number, which will change drastically the speed and handling of the truck, but you also want to make sure whatever tooth you use that you set the mesh right. The mesh simply means the tightness between the smaller pinion gear and the larger spur gear. Here's a video which tells more about how to do that. When you're out there driving or bashing, there's a couple other mistakes to avoid. One is, if it's a hot day, remember you should be checking your temps. Many people underestimate how hot these vehicles can get, especially if the ambient temperature outside is warm as well. These trucks generate a lot of heat in both the motor and the speed control and can actually burn themselves up. So you need to get into the habit of checking your temps. I use something simple like this, a digital thermometer. There are other ones such as guns. After you've been running for a while, be sure to stop and check the temps of your motor. You want to check the speed control as well. Oh, not bad. Not bad at all. It's not even hot. But you want to make sure that it's within the range of what it's supposed to be able to handle. You can find those on the manual, usually for that particular motor or electronic speed control. If they get too hot, that's a sign to give it a rest. Adding a heat sink or a fan to add to the cooling is also a good idea, especially if you notice those temps are getting high. Now, after getting back from running the RC, there's a few more mistakes that you want to avoid. One is forgetting to go through the truck and check for loose bolts and screws. You'd be surprised at how quickly screws can start to back out after running. So what I do is go through the whole truck on the bottom of the chassis and the top of the truck to see if any of them are loose. And you can find those loose screws and bolts, tighten them, and fix a potentially bigger problem from occurring down the road. Another mistake that people make is they believe that the truck is waterproof, so they let it go in a lot of water and not clean it off afterwards. While it's true that many trucks are waterproof these days, you want to be careful at how much water you let it go in. Water and mud are really not great for the components, so if you do happen to go in them, then you just want to simply be sure you wash it off afterwards. Washing with water is okay, but you don't want to use too much. You want to be careful where you're spraying, especially around the receiver box, and definitely dry it. I use an air compressor to dry. If you use a rag or a paper towel or something like that, it can take a while. There are also waterless ways to clean it. I'll put a link here for a video I made and how to do that. Then be sure to use something like this to lube up all the key components. Silocone quick drying WD-40 is much better than regular WD-40. And I explain why in that video that I referenced earlier about waterless cleaning. So there are several points where moving parts need to be lubed. You also might use regular WD-40 to prevent rust on other parts like the bolts on the chassis or other bolts. So WD-40 regular is not bad, it just is more used for preventing rust, whereas this can be used better for lubing up parts after they've gotten wet. So long story short, if you're gonna do mud bashing and water running, that's fine. Just make sure you dry it, clean it, and lube it afterwards to make your truck last and not turn into a rust bucket. So what did you all think? Were these mistake avoiding tips helpful? I hope they were, but if you can think of some other mistakes to avoid, definitely drop those in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Appreciate you guys watching. Thanks again. See you in the next video.